I think it's like the 26 variety of Storms of Furey. Thanks for joining in. Here we are about to close out 2025, which is just amazing. The years fly by. And, weather conditions, they vary, most certainly. We've been talking so much about what's going on in the sun, earthquakes that are going on around the globe. Extreme weather situation up there in Washington State with the big tropical atmospheric river, pineapple connection, whatever you want to call it. We have here in the Northeast had it kind of quiet in terms of any really major big storms. Yet across New England, it's one of the best starts to the ski season ever. With places like Killington, Vermont, close to 6 feet of snow. Jay Peak, Vermont, 16 feet of snow already this year. And, of course, in Connecticut, we have had two weather systems in a month of December 2025 that's coming in almost 8 degrees below average. Two weather systems that produced rain. The third one that's going to produce rain, strong winds, scattered outages, localized flooding, that's all going to be Thursday morning. Coming up here. So, actually Friday morning, Thursday night and Friday morning, the 19th of December. The snow cover that finally found its way to the rest of the state out of the Northwest Hills, which has had snow cover since the 1st of December. The bottom line is we're going to wipe the snow cover out, which is unfortunate. Maybe some coastal flooding as well. Speaking of flooding, now let's go back. We're going to talk about two things today. We're going to talk about 1996, January 96, the big blizzard, the one that everybody talks about, the one that really, grinded the entire East Coast to a halt. And what's very interesting about January 1996 is that really the big story wasn't the big snow that happened. It was the big flooding that happened in January of 1996. Something that gets forgotten. So let's first talk about, we had the big blizzard on the 6th through the 8th of January 1996. This one was epic. And yet there was a storm on the 2nd and 3rd of January 1996 that in Connecticut produced up and over a foot of snow. And then behind the blizzard of 1996, there was another snowstorm that had another foot of snow. So you have a foot and a half, and that all came within the first 12 days of January. So you think about the snow cover, 30, 40, 50 inches across the Northeast. That's how much snow was on the ground first half of January. And then everything changed. And, the rains came. And the epic floods that were unbelievable. So let's just talk about first the Great Nor'easter. On either side were a foot of snow in the beginning of January and the middle of January. This one paralyzed the megalopolis cities 29 years ago. A storm coming up out of the Gulf of Mexico, moves up the eastern seaboard. It shuts down airports, shuts down highways. Philadelphia with over 30 inches of snow. The Garden State Jersey Turnpike shut down. It was epic as it moved its way on up. And, it got up into Connecticut. And, we certainly had our hard hit. Now, what's interesting is New York City schools closed for the first time since 1978. Remember 1978, the blizzard of 78. We're going to talk next about January of 78. And what was that about? That'll give you an idea from, the 1980s, going through the 80s, how, we didn't have a whole lot of weather going on until we got back into the 90s. So as far as Connecticut is concerned, we're talking about numbers in terms of snowfall amounts that were up there, 18, 24 inches. The drifts were amazing. The rating of this snowstorm was a 5, and that's the only second time a storm got a rating of a 5 since the superstorm of March of 1993. This one was a bombogenesis that plastered the area. We had 24 inches of snow in Boston. Now, Hartford picking up 18 inches, but there were some places in Northwest Hills into Berkshire County that had 30 inches of snow. Of course, airlines canceled and so forth. But this one was one that affected the big cities. A classic I-95 snowstorm, buried to say the least. And you can see with the video that we have, it was one that kept some out of school for almost a week. So it was January 6th through the 8th of 1996, with a foot of snow prior to this and a foot of snow right after this, and then came the flooding. Yes, and that's what's forgotten about January of 1996. The big epic snowstorms, and then the flooding happened, and that was some of the worst flooding that's ever occurred in the Northeast. We're talking about the amounts of water when you consider that you put 4 or 5 plus inches of rain down on top of 4 feet of snow in some cases. The rivers across the Northeast, the worst flooding in Pennsylvania since Agnes in 72. The rivers and streams all throughout the Northeast overflowing. The setup, one of perfect for snowstorms for the first half of January, and then the change. So that's what happens, the extreme weather conditions that can occur. And that occurred in January of 1996, where we went from epic snows to epic flooding. And, well, the flooding is forgotten about. And it's certainly something that is one to think about as we move down the road. Our weather's been awfully tranquil of late. We haven't had any really big, epic, and really hard to take weather systems, and that's going to change at some point in time. And there are thoughts that maybe the cold that we have in December of 2025 so far here in the Northeast is just an appetizer for what's going to come down the road. So even though we're talking about a rainstorm and a windstorm and a mess Friday morning and melting all the snow, just maybe there's something really interesting down the road, and we'll be talking about that more. Next, we're going to talk about 1978, January. Do you remember what happened then in Connecticut? We'll be back. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. When you talk about extreme weather, well, how about 1973, the epic ice storm? We've talked about this before. The ice storm in Connecticut that was, leaving 2.3 pounds per foot of ice on branches. When you look at what the ice storm of 1973 did, the power outage situation up in the 300,000 plus range. The shoreline got hit extremely hard. Temperatures aloft in the atmosphere were 50 degrees while it was in the teens at the surface. And the radial ice was getting up there in that 2-3 inch range. So, Governor Meskel back then with a declaration of disaster in Connecticut. The National Guard was out. And so, that's a setup that you always have to watch out for, especially in El Nino years. Now, we're in La Nina at the moment, but that's an example of an extreme event that was extremely troublesome to many and kept people out of power for a long time. Another extreme event that has happened around here. You talk about 1978. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about 1978 in the Northeast? You think about the blizzard of 1978. Everybody goes right to the blizzard of 78. But when you look at January of 1978, you will find that there was a lot more to January of 78 than there was to February of 78. We had the blizzard of 78, February 6th and 7th, and we can talk more about that down the road. But that came in, and then, there was really no more snow in that month of February 1978. Everything calmed down, was quiet, easy going. And so we had a long time to to dig out. The thing that made the blizzard of 78 so epic was that there were consistent winds between 50 and 70 miles per hour. So it was like a hurricane. It was a full-fledged extreme blizzard. But January of 1978, well, that's a very interesting month. Consider the fact that the total amount of liquid listed for February of 1978 was about 1.42 inches. That was all the liquid that was generated out of, at Bradley was like 16.9 inches of snow, but there was more in other places. That month of February, by the way, 1978, came in at about 7.5 degrees below average. January of 1978 came in with close to 10 inches of liquid. And yes, some of that was liquid and some of that was frozen. And when you put all of that together, the snow and then the liquid that fell from the sky, that set the stage for, well, a near tragedy in Hartford, Connecticut. The Hartford Civic Center roof collapse. Yes, that going back into January 17th, 18th of 1978. This is what it looked like, the Civic Center roof collapse. Now, consider the fact that this happened at about 4 o'clock in the morning. University of Connecticut upset University of Massachusetts on the evening before with close to 5,000 people in attendance of that game. Kind of odd to say UConn upset UMass, but that was 1978. And so all those people were in the Civic Center at that time. And then this is what happened at 4 o'clock in the morning. The weight of all the snow and the ice and the liquid brought this building down. And this could have been one of the worst horrific tragedies in terms of loss of life in American history if this had happened a few hours before. So it's chilling to think about what this could have been. But thank God that everybody was out when this happened, and the scenes here you can see is just mind-boggling that there could be enough snow and enough ice and enough liquid to take the roof down. So it was the storm of January 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. You're talking about during that time period, more snow fell than what fell in the blizzard of 1978. So nobody really talks much about that. And what's interesting is that the Civic Center collapsed during the time that we were getting all this snow coming through, and there was over 2 inches of liquid from a storm just a week before, and then there was another rainstorm after the snowstorm when the collapsing came down, which delivered upwards of 2.5 inches of rain. So the bottom line is, if the Civic Center came down in the middle of the month, it would have most certainly come down at the end of the month as well, as we ended up with 10 inches of liquid and 37 inches of snow in the Hartford area during January of 78, which, well, when you look at that month, it is a month that is most certainly worse than what happened in February of 1978. Yes, we had the blizzard. Yes, we had roadways shut down. But we had a lot of roadways shut down and a lot of big problems in January of 1978 as well. It's amazing to look at what we were doing back then. We've talked about the fact that back then, 77, 78, these way below average months like we have here in December of 2025. 7-8 degrees below average, just like it was back in February of 78 and all the cold we had in 77. So, here we are talking about the Ice Age back then. Ice Age is coming back. And so that didn't happen. At the same time, we have not had the predictions of, our climate here in Connecticut is going to be like Daytona Beach, Florida in 50 years. That hasn't happened either. So here we are trying to figure everything out, looking at all the things that go on, the volcanic eruptions, the sun, the changes in the the tilt of the Earth due to the solar storms. It's fascinating to see all the different things that are going on. And so with the extremes that are happening and the fact that cold seems to be happening a little bit more. There's more ice up in the Arctic regions, and the amount of cold that has built up across Canada and the Northwest Territories so far in December of 2025 is just amazing to look at. And so when you see that up there, and you see that we've had the big cold already in December, yes, January, February of 2026, watch out. This could be really big. And we'll talk a little more on that coming up. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. My hair looks like we're in the wind. The wind, a lot of you talk about why is it so windy? And there's a lot of reasons for that. You know that there have been now 7 storm systems that have undergone bombogenesis and have plastered up through the Canadian Maritimes, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland over the course of the last 7 weeks. So all these systems that have come through the Northeast that weren't exactly ramped up and pounding us, they pounded out to the north and east, and that's the reason why the wind has happened. Whenever you've got a big super low pressure system in one spot and the high coming in from the west, pressure gradient tightens, and it's the isobars, those lines of equal pressure. Closer those isobars are together, the more the wind blows, because the wind is trying to make the pressure the same everywhere. Yes, it's these pressure gradients that create the wind. You can have wind other ways, thermals and so forth, but the storms are the ones that create the winds for us. And of course, where the storms track determines, the direction of the wind, the type of precipitation we're going to get. Anytime a storm goes to our west, as far as southern New England goes, southerly wind, and we end up warm and, in some cases, shoreline, big waves and flooding. We kind of have that setup coming into Friday morning. Again, this will be 3 times out of the last 4 in a month that's coming in as one of the colder Decembers on record. Keep in mind, December of 1989, when you want to talk about extremes, December of 1989 was 14.5 degrees below average here in Connecticut. 14.5 below. So basically, December 89 was twice as cold as this December right now, which is hard to comprehend. So you get into these, these crazy setups that can make the weather go wild. As I talked about, talking about back in the late 70s, the Ice Age coming back. Of course, that didn't happen. And then we went through the 80s with really nothing going on. And then December of 89 showed up, and it was out of sight in terms of the cold. And then January was 7.5 degrees above average, and February was 3.5 degrees above average. We just flipped it right around, just like we did in January of 1996, when we had upwards of 30, 40 plus inches of snow the first half of the month, and then we ended up with big rains and big flooding across the Northeast. So it's amazing how we can turn around. And so, the big question now as we go on into 1996, listen to me, 2026, let's face it, we can't get the next day right a lot. So, it's my producer's laughing. Juliana's laughing over here because she's right. I go out to schools. I love going out to schools and being with the kids, and whether they're kindergartners or 3rd graders, 6th graders, it's just wonderful to go out and talk. And I always ask them what they want to be when they grow up, and they'll come out with all these different things, and you talk about you have a passion for something, you go for it, you go bug. Anybody wants to be a meteorologist, come bug me, and we'll do it. I've had 2 guys with me from 7th grade. They started in 7th grade. One of them went to Penn State and won the forecasting contest as a freshman. So we love it with the kids and getting out there and talking about what's happening. But trying to relate the situations for any given season, for that matter. But yeah, trying to get out into a long range and figure out what's going to happen down the road. yeah, you're really getting into the guessing game. It's again, when you see these big dramatic changes, trying to get a view of something over the long haul is very hard to do. So the bottom line, 2026, we're going into January with a setup that looks like the cold wants to keep coming. Yet at the same time, as we go through Christmas week, most of the nation is going to be golfing and having a picnic outside. Denver, Colorado, 7 degrees above average for December of 2025, and then they've gone 8 days in a row in the 60s. So here in New England, well, we're on the other side. We're 7, 8 degrees below average. So is it going to flip around and we're going to end up with the Denver weather? A lot of times that happens. And there's a little punch of that's coming in here as we go into the 18th, 19th of December. But when you look at all the cold that's up there in Canada, the Northwest Territories, and see how it's building and see how it's been there, and conventional wisdom would be, okay, that can't stay up there forever. We know that the polar vortex has relaxed. That's the reason why the cold has kept on coming down. But it's really coming down here. It hasn't really made its way down south. Now, if we got this northern branch jet to dig way far south, well, that's how you get your big storms out of the Gulf of Mexico, like the blizzard of 1996, January, or the blizzard of 78, or the epic storm of the century of 1993, and so many others. So right now the setup is, if this cold was digging way far south to the Gulf, and we'd be having some super mega snowstorms, and so we're not in that, at least not yet. So that's why we say down the road, January into February, we have thoughts of the fact that what's happened here in December so far is, well, just a little flavor, a little preview of what December or January, February want to be like. In other words, the cold keeps coming. The jet pattern shifts a little bit. The potential for the snowstorms are there. So, yeah, all of a sudden you're talking about a long winter. It's, it's tough this time of year. The days are short. Of course, living up more to the north, they're really short. Had somebody one time down from eastern Canada working with us, and it was too much daylight down here and wasn't cold enough and wanted to go back north. So everybody has their own places they want to be. And, for some of you, being down south in a nice warm climate is where you would like to be. Only place right now that's really stayed away from, the cold at all is South Florida. They've been doing pretty well down there. But again, everything that's happening, the sun, the storms, the effect on the earth, the earthquakes that are going on, the thoughts that, there's going to be more major earthquakes, especially in the Ring of Fire, Japan, and so forth, and the effect on our weather. Yes, get ready. Could be a really wild time as we head through the rest of winter 2026, which, by the way, winter officially arrives at 10:03 on this coming Sunday morning, the 21st of December. All right, I hope you're feeling well. We'll see you again. Bye.